Hi everyone, I'm Joe. Today it's time for me to do a book review of The Truth, written by Terry Pratchett. This is a fantasy novel first published in 2000. It is the 25th Discworld novel and it is not part of one of the existing character sub-series, although it is somewhat related to the Guards or City Watch series, partially because they do make a somewhat significant contribution to the plotline. And indeed, I'll talk about the plotline and a synopsis first. And it is quite simply a character called William de Word, who is the son of a very well-known and quite rich, sort of a posh man. You know, he's sort of a noble and sort of a lord, and he's very self-important in his own mind, frankly full of himself for the most part. William, however, is very much not like his father, or at least he doesn't think he is, and he doesn't want to be, because he doesn't exactly see eye to eye with his father, let's say, because he thinks his father is problematic, to put it simply, and also to keep a little bit of suspense going. And he decides to try and make his own way in the world without his father's influence and without his father's money, which is frankly enormous. So, essentially what happens is he ends up developing and creating the Discworld's first newspaper called the Ankh-Morpork Times. And for the record, the book is indeed set in Ankh-Morpork, which is where the City Watch come into play, because obviously they are the police force of the city. Now, at the start, he is creating a newspaper, the Times, where he's just creating small stories of things going on, and it proves to be surprisingly popular. This is of concern to certain people, especially the Engravers Guild and related people to them, because of course they've had the monopoly on, you know, anything to do with the printed word for years. The idea of actually printing, they don't like. However, it's very hard to stop this, however. So there's a little bit of a, kind of a newspaper wars element coming into play there. I won't talk too much about that. But the main thing that happens though, once the newspaper is established, is coincidentally there is a crime being committed, or maybe a crime being committed. Nobody's entirely sure, because the main suspect who's committing the crime is surprisingly Lord Vetinari, the patrician ruler of the city. You know, this is a one-man, one-vote system. Vetinari is the man, and he has the vote. And he's going to vote for himself. So the city works very well under his sort of control, under his sort of rule. He doesn't really rule. He just makes sure that things work, and everybody appreciates this because the city is doing extremely well and has been for a long time now. Unlike under other rulers, where the city was a bit more of a chaotic mess, with Vetinari, it's working in a very interesting way. However, some people, and this is a very important element, are less keen on the way Vetinari runs the city, because he's very keen on, and frankly, he's sort of liberal, frankly, you would call him. He accepts anybody in the city as long as you're not trying to commit crimes and you are just trying to, work hard and live your life the way you want to live it without, unnecessarily doing harm to other people. A little bit of pushing to and through and from groups in the city he can get with, but not too much aggressive nature. He tries to, temper that. So the fact that Vetinari is accused of a crime, which obviously William de Word and his newspaper reports on, is interesting and problematic, let's say, because William just wants to get to the truth, and everybody else wants to get to William, mainly to injure him or show him up for various reasons, like they don't want the truth to come out, they don't want him to be alive, or they don't want his printing press to be alive, or all of them, as the case may be. And it's a really interesting plot, fun, highly complex, and really nuanced, with the main thing being, as always, what Pratchett does well, a phenomenal cast of characters. All the characters just work really well. William's Word is an interesting new character. It is very obvious to me, and indeed I would think that when this was originally released to anybody, that he was not going to be a character that would keep reoccurring. This is a character for this book, which T. Pratchett obviously does, same as the new author, on a frequent basis. And there are, of course, recurring characters. There are several interesting characters in this, though. There is Gunilla Goodmountain, who is a dwarf, who is the chief printing officer or printing individual that William works with to control the printing press, or tries to control the printing press. There is Sakurisa, who is a young lady who is just trying to find a sort of, a proper place for a young woman to work, that is, socially acceptable, and she's trying to find her place in the world. And there is a pair of rather unusual criminals, let's say, or gangsters, frankly, Tulip and Pin. Strange names, and they're very strange individuals, frankly. They're both very unpleasant. They're basically kind of a new age criminals, which works with the new age of the city, what with the printing press and the free press coming to mind. They are individuals and criminals that don't think like sort of older fashioned criminals, and they're gaining a reputation as criminals that will do basically anything. There's very few limits to what they would do, which works out well in some cases, but it's also presenting problems. So these two characters, Tulip and Pin, combined with others, and William and multiple others, and obviously the Watch and Samuel Vimes, who is the captain of the Watch, is a really interesting combination. They all work together really well. They bounce off each other well and just communicate well, but also their different standings in life and in city and in society also work together well, and also contrast well too, because it's about class to a large degree. The book is as well, which anything to do with the Watch and Ankh-Morpork often does bring up class. And this is to do with one of the locations, and that is Ankh-Morpork. Ankh-Morpork is essentially T. Pratchett making a fantasy version of London, England, and every stereotype about the city is basically twisted and turned and made fun of in a really fun and enjoyable manner. And you just know what he's getting at when he's referring to different things in the city, because it's like, oh yeah, it's that London stereotype or London trope, but just taken to a kind of silly level. But it's enjoyable though, because you know that he's, T. Pratchett himself, is really having fun with what he's trying to say about the city and about the characters and about aspects of society. And that is one of the main points I'm going to talk about finally now, and that is the main sort of ideas and themes in the novel. And one of them is obviously the truth sets you free, apparently. However, the truth sets you free. Some people aren't aware that the truth may set you free. Free to get robbed, beaten up, or basically silenced so you can't be free. It's always problematic. People think that, and indeed this is what T. Pratchett discusses, that free press is always a good thing. Which, yes, free press is generally a good thing, but not a free press that has no controls, no systems in place for it to be, like an oversight committee. It needs something there just so it doesn't just do anything it wants without repercussions and without consequences. There needs to be some way of not controlling it, but at least tempering it a little bit so it doesn't get out of control. And frankly, as we know from media, social media, and indeed traditional media like newspapers, what people report on can get twisted either accidentally or often nowadays, and unfortunately on purpose. People can get manipulated into apparently saying things or doing things that they haven't actually done. But what with the amount of information out there, who do you believe? What do you believe? If you've got 100 sources saying one thing and 100 sources saying something else, which one's correct? Is one correct? I mean, usually is, but how do you tell? This is what this is bringing in. And indeed, accidentally, he's talking about social media as well. Although this was obviously published in 2000, so this was before the real rise of all the social media that you have today. I mean, before YouTube really, and definitely before Twitter and Facebook and all the other ones that I often don't generally know about because I don't use most social medias, to be honest. This is saying that, you know, the truth can set you free, yes, but too much truth can actually be problematic, because how do you know what is the truth, what is just, you know, what somebody believes? Truth isn't necessarily opinion. There's a difference between truth and fact, and the book is trying to discuss that line. We want to find where the line is, and the characters are trying to find that line. It's a really interesting discussion and fascinating discussion, which T. Pratchett does really, really well, whilst making a really enjoyable and really funny book. I mean, the characters work well, the setting, obviously being an Ankh-Morpork book, is brilliant, and overall this is just a really interesting and well written book which covers some really interesting and fascinating points. T. Pratchett's writing is brilliant, the humour is phenomenal throughout, as it always is. His sense of basically having fun with what he's writing, characters, even making the points. He doesn't do it in a dry way. Everything he does is enjoyable, and you can tell that he's just enjoying himself writing. And frankly, I would highly recommend this book. This is a one-off book as far as, you know, character series goes, as I said at the start of the video. So you could read this almost independently. I wouldn't recommend it personally because you'd miss earlier developments in the world, but you could. And overall, I would heavily recommend this book in general. I mean, frankly, if you're looking for a fantasy novel, then read basically anything by T. Pratchett, because he's brilliant. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching. If you have read this and would like to have a talk about it, then please leave a comment and we can talk about it there. A link to the book, as well as a link to all my social medias, can be found in the description box below, as always. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.